maybe we have you all introduce yourselves. Wendy, if you don't mind starting.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Wendy. I'm leading performance marketing at Wolt. Started about 10 months ago. Yeah, we're a delivering company headquartered in Finland, founded in 2014. It was purchased by DoorDash 2 years ago in a $7 billion deal.
And I was trying to make bets on what was the most ordered food on Wolt. Should we have the audience guess? Is it pizza or burgers?
So I actually checked the data. It's pretty 50-50 between pizza and burger, but I can share like the top search term in our app, if anyone wants to give it a shot. It's actually MC. So everybody's going to the app trying to look for a McDonald's delivery.
Oh, right, yeah.
Wow. Okay, and Ara, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ara from FREENOW. I'm the head of digital marketing. So my team heads up all paid activities for B2B, B2C, also driver marketing, passenger marketing, and ASO. And yeah, we run campaigns for all markets for FREENOW, the multi-mobility app.
And since you're working for FREENOW, how do you actually travel within cities?
That's funny because I love walking, so I'm not the best customer, but that's mainly in the summer. And I find if I'm in a hurry or the weather is bad, or I need to get somewhere far, I love car sharing, so I love miles. I also take the metro a lot and taxis as well, and that's what I like about FREENOW. You can book any type of transport mode through different companies. Basically, we get you where you want, however you want. So we're a aggregator of other brands. We don't own our fleet. Yeah.
Well, that's how I got here today. So. And Alex, maybe you next.
Yeah, so Alex, Chief Growth Officer at Taxfix, the largest tax filing app in Europe. Basically, making taxes as easy as we can. And then responsibilities go across growth, engineering, product, data, marketing, brand, all the fun stuff.
Do you see how much you save your customers in taxes, or are you allowed to disclose that?
Yes, so I checked. I think now it's at 3.6 billion euros in taxes saved in a bit more than 6 years.
Nice.
So I hope we hit 20 billion in a couple of years from now.
There you have it, everybody. Start filing your taxes, maybe get some money back. And last but not least, Rodolphe.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Rodolphe. I'm head of marketing at Tandem. Tandem is a language exchange app that connects you with native speakers from the country you're trying to learn and vice versa. I've been at Tandem for about 3 years now. Came to APS about 2 years ago speaking about influencers. I'll tell you a little bit today like why influencers is not a thing for us anymore. And yes, really excited to share the stage with everyone around here today.
And what's the most practiced language in Tandem, actually?
By far, it's English. But the highest amount of native speakers is actually Spanish.
Spanish.
It's sometimes hard to find a good comparison between like all of the wish versus like the actual supply that we've got.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. So then jumping into the questions and thinking about UA, Ara, let's start with you, perhaps. Can you talk a bit about how your setup is now in terms of, is it mobile focus, multi-channel, or going beyond mobile when looking at this year?
Great question. I mean, my team is fully mobile focused, app focused, but the reality is demand isn't only on mobile. So as a company, we really take a multi-channel approach. Because if you think about the transportation industry, demand usually takes place on the streets, or if you're in the U-Bahn trying to get to a place. So I think that's why multi-channel is a really key element for FREENOW. So we invest in a lot of offline channels like out of home, even transport-specific channels like OCA, ICA, so that's on-car advertising or in-car advertising, and working with events and influencers. And I think this is key because if you think about it, in certain cities, even in Germany, some people still book taxis on a telephone, like they call taxi numbers. It's not on app or mobile. And others retail in certain cities. So if you want to convert offline users to mobile, you need to approach it holistically. So yeah, that's key. Another thing is we try to be present in areas where our audience indexes highly. So our audience really likes live concerts. So we've sponsored musicians and events in the UK where we get visibility there. Yeah.
Very interesting. And Wendy?
Yeah, I would say pretty omni-channel because we are, well, also app and web-based. A lot of people used to work, order food on the website, right? Like, because food delivery is nothing new. It's gone way back. So yeah, what we're trying to do is we have central local team set up. Central team basically focuses on all the digital channels across the whole funnel. So starting from brand to user acquisition, direct response campaigns. We are live in, I think, a bit more than 30 digital channels across all 25 markets that we're operating in. And then we have the local team then supporting the local initiatives. So when it comes to discount, affordability, offline channels, out-of-home TV, like things that you can think of, prints as well, as we expand to more cities across all of our markets. So yeah, pretty covered. And most recently, we also have this employer benefit program. So basically, if you're an employer, you can offer your employees like budgeted food. Let's say, like, okay, we want to offer you 3 meals a week, and then your employees can simply sign up and order directly. And this is also one of our ways of generating not just awareness, but direct user acquisition.
Nice. Rodolphe?
Well, tandem is a very unique position, so that's why I was hearing a lot of paid acquisition. But for us, actually, our main source of acquisition is actually organic. So about 90 to 95 of our 1,000 daily new members are actually coming organically. So for us, the challenge was really this year to restructure the entire company, the entire organization, to really think about how can we actually bring virality within the product. Because word of mouth is something, and we were really thinking and really developing new features of how can we make the user wanted to actually bring even more users, even like their pairs, their friends, family. And that's why so we've been developing like new features that are like called clubs and parties. One of them is like audio room focused. The other one is more like interest focused. And because actually at Tandem, we've got like a low LTV, we actually need to be creative. We always have to do actually less, to do more with less, actually. And this is where all of the challenges coming from. We have been doing paid acquisition. Like I think earlier this year represented about like 5% total of our acquisition. And it's now actually at 12%. So a few years ago, we were using influencers and content creators a lot to actually create the creatives. But what we've been actually doing a lot this year when it comes to paid acquisition is actually to use like our 2 or 3 video creators that we have, and actually them using AI technology to have all of those creative displayed in every other 12 other languages that we have. So we could actually be way more efficient and quick in the way that we produce and still maintaining like a really low amount of cost, rather than actually having to use 12 different influencers for just creating like one video that would be actually one video in each local.
Okay. And Alex, how's the setup on your side?
We started mobile first 5-6 years ago, and nowadays it's about 35 user acquisition sources and engagement sources. I don't really like the word omni-channel. I kind of made fun of it like 10 years ago, but we're omni-channel. And the latest one has been on the B2B2C side, so filing your taxes through your employer in Italy, for example.
Oh, excellent. Well, since everybody's probably right now on the marketing teams are budgeting and planning for next year, and sometimes there's a dilemma between, as you'd say, allocating extra channel resources or regional resources, and of course there's pros and cons to both of these things. Could you, Wendy, maybe start with sharing some of how your team is organized and the channels and regions and your thoughts on this dilemma?
Yeah, it's been a quite long, let's say, budgeting journey, right? Like for 2024. As mentioned earlier, we have the regional and central team set up. When it comes to like the actual budget allocation within digital channels, it's important to note that we don't have channel owners. We're not operated or splitting our teams based on channel expertise, but more like country owner. So of course we want everybody to be great at the channels that they're operating in, but at the same time, we want everybody to care more about the growth of the country as a whole, instead of, okay, now I need to spend more on Meta, more on Snap, or on certain channels. But rather thinking about what are connecting those dots. And this translates to how we plan the budget as well. When we set budget targets, it's like this entire year plan, right? But then throughout each month, each quarter, you have a chance to say, like, look, this is something, like, I'm seeing my efficiency deteriorating, so how can I do with this additional budget that was already allocated to me? You flag it soon enough, discuss with your local teams, look at all the initiatives that have worked in the past, and allocate that instantly without having to get layers of approvals from management. So the upside of it is pretty fluid, right? Like, we can simply make those decisions instantly, but at the same time, think about how we have 25 markets, and we're doing this on a weekly basis to steer those budgets based on like our return on investment, LTV, CAC, and so on. It can get a bit chaotic. So our team is set up in a way that we make sure we're not running into the circles of like, oh, constantly changing numbers and not have a real chance to evaluate the performance of it. So yeah, and I also want to highlight that what I find it really cool having the country set up is everybody will have a chance to work on not just one market, probably more than one. And if you are, I wouldn't say like sick of the market, but if you want to move to a different market to support them, it's also possible because the skill sets you carry with you will be applicable even if you move to a different region. So that also makes our kind of team, I would say, culture very healthy. We have a very low employee churn rate.
Excellent. Ara?
Yeah, similar to Wendy, but a bit different at FREENOW. So our digital marketing team is a central team, while we have local teams that manage offline agencies, PR, influencers, etc. But we have joint goals as a team, so working together. Before I joined, it used to be channel split on the digital marketing side. So we had our paid social experts, paid search, but we've just restructured this year, and we see a lot of benefits in going cross-channel and localized. And it's not for every company. It depends on what growth stage you're in, what your product is, how much localization is needed versus channel specialization. But for us, we take a channel agnostic approach. So really with, I would say, the focus on profitability and efficient growth, this made sense for us because it empowered the team to be agile and make these quick budget decisions. If Meta's not performing or Google, they switch the budgets much quicker because they own the whole market. And what we've seen in the mobility space is localization is everything. Like, your audience is different, their needs, where they are. What works in the UK doesn't work in Germany. So I think that level of localization really helps. While I say that, it has pros and cons. So I think going too general is a risk, and you should still try to maintain like a T-shaped marketer model. So have people that specialize and share the knowledge while they still have ownership and that localization. But yeah, to sum up, as I said, it depends on your company. I don't think there's a best approach for every company. It depends where you're at. So just, yeah, assess pros and cons, weigh them, and test it. If it doesn't work, you can revert back.
Okay, Rodolphe?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, as you say, Ara, I think for me it really depends of the size of the organization. So I think the size of organization that you might have at FREENOW, for example, Taxfix or Wolt is like quite much bigger organization, where when you actually have to deal with like smaller team, you really need to think of like how to make everything efficient. I think it is quite challenging also sometimes when you have like such a small team, because you need to have pretty much like one strategy that apply for all. There is like obviously like some differentiation. For example, if you think about like the APAC region is quite different, so there we need to always put some more effort compared to Western countries. But at the end of the day, like I truly believe that having an organization based on local is actually way more powerful, because as you were saying that being able to deliver like really relevant content to the country you're working is obviously, despite the fact that countries to one another could have similarities, yet they're still very different. The way of buying is different, the way of thinking is different, and it's like really challenging. And I do believe that on the long term, this is something that at Tandem we would like to have once we actually expand, having this ability to really localize the strategy per market. But as of now, as we still remain on like a smaller team, we still really have to think really hard of like how to make one strategy that can actually apply for all.
Okay. And okay, but in light of that, then maybe Ara, coming back to you, you know, how is your app tech stack evolving, and how are you looking into new optimizations and methodologies for 2024? Then is it predictive ROAS, creative optimization in terms of incrementality, MMM?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the obvious ones a lot of advertisers are doing, but it doesn't mean it's not important. So we're investing a lot in different measurement approaches, solutions, as well as creative automation. So those are the two areas. And what I mean in terms of measurement, incrementality testing, that's a keystone for us. Like, especially when it comes to your re-engagement campaigns, we always ask ourselves, would these users come back to the app anyways if they didn't see the ad? And we test it, and we don't test it once. We test it per country many times. We validate it, and then we use this to calibrate our results. And we don't just calibrate within the digital marketing channels, but we compare to CRM, to vouchers, just to understand what is the incremental CPA, what's the incremental ROAS. And that tells you one part of the story, because it's still incrementality, and then you use attribution. But MMM is also old technology, but something many advertisers are bringing back these days, especially, as I mentioned, for like offline channels like out-of-home, OCA, events. You know, attribution's not going to track that. So MMM helps you look at it holistically and fill in the gaps and the missing pieces. So attribution and measurement-wise, like those are the areas we've invested in. Creative-wise, I think we're investing in tools that help us build templates where we can scale and localize creatives. We're exploring generative AI, so there are a lot of tools out there, whether it's like Midjourney, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion. There's a lot you can do to speed up your creative delivery, output, and testing. Yeah, so I would say tech stack-wise, for us, those are like the two focus areas.
And Wendy, for Wolt?
Yeah, actually, a lot of things have already been said by Arad. So yeah, we do like, of course, incrementality testing is things that we mentioned for the longest time already. There's nothing really new about it. At the end of the day, you want to understand, like, if I don't run this channel, will I get increment? Will the user still come anyways? It just makes it very, very difficult nowadays to really track that accurately on your attribution. So really, a lot of credit to our very own MarTech team this year to develop our very own media mix model, where we allow to see that you can really compare what's your attribution number telling you in terms of the customers that you get from certain channels versus what our model is telling us. It is, of course, not 100% accurate, but it's a pretty good guidance for you to take, let's say, bolder decisions, right? Like if somebody tells you, like, okay, you have a very good channel that is scaling very well with high efficiency, but then the model is telling you to cut the budget by half. Will you do it? If you don't have the model, maybe you will just be like, you know what, I need to hit my target, so I will keep the budget as it is. But if the model is suggesting that, why don't you give it a try, you might see a bit of a negative trend for some time, but then it will compensate further down the road, not just in acquisition, but also in further, order frequencies and things that you can measure down the road. And this gives us a confidence that, okay, let's give it a try, because we're not going to aim just for success for this month, but we want to see like if this will turn out to the long term, like doing more with less, like what Rodolphe was saying. So yeah, this is kind of our main focus at the moment, and we're trying to train this model in the way that it also takes into account of not just online channels that we can track, but also like offline spend, affordability, things that we're running alongside our digital campaigns.
Okay. And Alex, on Taxfix side?
I think a lot has been said already. I would add, on the media mix modeling side, we're trying to find where the science ends and the art starts. It's kind of misleading to take these models off the shelf and tweak them and say, like, okay, that's reality. Give you an example. How long does a TV ad last in your mind? Is it 30 days, 55 days, 60 days? And then you realize that, media mix models actually also don't have the answer to this stuff. And things like ad stock curves, you need to spend a lot of time on sort of principle-based reasoning, not so much on science-based reasoning. On the creative side, finding out how to keep up with generative AI. So we were a pretty early adopter. I'm kind of obsessed with this stuff, but this stuff is changing every 30 days, give or take, depending on which model version you look at. I cannot recall in my entire career a time when jobs changed every 30 days for a large part of the whole org. And then I'd say on the productivity side, trying to get models to talk with models. Give you an example, if somebody has a couple of tasks that are all kind of interlinked with each other, how can you per task create a model and then have that model talk to another model and there's just no person involved. You can actually do this quite easily now, especially with Assistance API from OpenAI. So yeah, try and figure out where's that new boundary on productivity to enhance or empower people to be way more productive. Don't have all the answers. Lots of questions, not a lot of answers.
Right. And then Wendy, just to expand on your point a little bit, how are you placing more weight on? Are you placing more weight on engagement or re-engagement versus new acquisitions? And if so, any best practices that you can share?
Yeah, very good question, because again, we have not just one market. We were founded 9 years ago. We have markets where we are pretty penetrated already, where then retention becomes a higher focus than growth. But if you look at Wolt as a whole, growth is still our North Star, right? When I say growth, it's about the first-time customer that are coming in to make the first purchase. And we have the target set, as said earlier, but then when we measure the return on investment every month, if we see that, okay, this month we're overperforming in our profitability, then this is the extra media spend that we can reinvest into the wheel. And what we try to do is we realize we have very good let's say, organic retention. So people who sign up, they do come back to purchase. People who purchase, they do come back multiple times. What we're trying to do in the paid effort to drive even more stickiness to our app is to promote other verticals that we have within our service. So actually, I'm not sure if everybody is aware, but who here has a Wolt Plus subscription? Okay, not that many.
Wow.
And who's, yeah, great chance. Who here has ordered groceries or any other things from Wolt besides restaurants? Good. Yeah, so this is what we're trying to advertise in terms of upselling to our existing customers, right? We're not just delivering food to your door, but we also can deliver pretty much almost everything that you can think of. Last week I was actually in Cyprus, and once I entered the hotel, I realized I forgot to bring my contact lens. So I asked the reception, like, hey, do you have a pharmacy or drugstores in the hotel? And they said, unfortunately not, but maybe you can check out this app called Wolt. I heard that they deliver things, so I was like, oh yeah, thanks for the recommendations. I'll give it a look. But this kind of things are not coming naturally to our users, and we're making this a bigger chunk of what we're trying to offer in our app. So a lot of our retention effort is going into this, and as long as we still have this very, let's say, healthy LTV developments, we're going to continue promoting other verticals.
All right, and Rodolphe, I think you had a bit of a different angle.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, as we rely only on organic, we don't do much paid. So for us, all users comes naturally. The word of mouth make it that we actually get lots and lots of users every day without us having to do much effort, which is an amazing, unique position to be in. But then the challenge really comes of how do you actually retain all of these users? And how can you make sure that you understand who they are? Because that's also the thing, sometimes when you've got someone who does a TikTok video about us, and then all of a sudden we see a huge amount of new joiners, yet the video is not always about language learning. Sometimes it can actually be about dating, which is actually the complete opposite of the aim of the app. You've got tons of apps that actually does a great job into dating, but Tandem try to really step out of it. Yet we see sometimes these users that are actually coming not for language purposes, and this is sometimes the difficulty of how can you filter correctly who's coming within the community. Something that we've been working really hard with retention team. So like I said, we had virality team, marketing team, and retention team, was really to how can we embrace the user experience? And this started with how can we use AI and machine learning to really partner, make you see the right people, the people that we know that you would have the best interest with, the people that you probably have the same learning preferences. Some people would just to have a conversation, talk, practice, while some other really want to be corrected at every single mistake that they make, which, for example, is something that I would not like. And then it's really the question of how can you balance that together? We are also primary like a texting app. It's also like how can you make sure that you can manage supply and demand so you don't have so much time difference in the way that you're answering. So for instance, if you are here in Germany and you're trying to text like because you want to learn Chinese, for example, then you have like always about like, I don't know, 7 hours time difference. And it's also like how do you deal with those differences? So all of those questions match together. It's really like how can you, yes, really embrace the user experience. And this is something we've been trying really hard to work on. But it's also like how to keep the community safe. So how can you make sure there is no scammers? How to make sure that you get rid of all of the potential bad actors that could harm your retention? Because if you're new joiners, as a girl, for example, especially, and let's say that it can happen, we're trying to prevent it, but like all of a sudden you've got 20 guys coming to you, texting you, being like, hey, how pretty you are, hey, you look so gorgeous, like how about we have a talk together? We have these kind of bad actors, and it's sometimes really hard to be able to understand who these people are and make sure that they are not negatively impacting your community. And last but not least, something that we introduced this year is the concept of streak, which is actually like quite a thing already when you think about Snapchat, when you think about Duolingo. We started to do it like really much as like a first test, just to see if whether or not we would actually be able to identify some potential there. And actually, after 2 weeks, we could already see like an uplift of 8% in retention, which is like quite big, just knowing that how sometimes like this really small effort can actually have huge success. And then the point is really like, how can you make sure that it works market per market? When you look at the big picture, overall number looked really good, but then when you look market per market, you can actually see an identified market that on which it has like a negative impact. For example, US, Germany, incredible. You guys, you just love having a streak and making sure like you send message every day and you're really consistent in your way of learning. While for countries such as like Italy, for example, they're really against it. Like they're really much rather do and have their own experience, while if you push them, they actually it has a negative impact. So it's like, how can you also take each of those local learnings, try to implement it all together to then have like a successful global strategy that would work for every single market positively and not just for some of them.
Okay, excellent. The next question then, jumping into a bit of a, what I always like talking about is what have been your biggest learnings from the last year overall across UA, so from hiring to setup to any testing. Wendy, if you want to give us your ideas.
Yeah, I always love this kind of question. So I think the biggest, if I would summarize like what the biggest learning could be this year, was when I transitioned to Wolt earlier this year. I had a chance to join some QBRs from the start, right? Like having the fresh pair of eyes, not really knowing how the company is doing, just to be there and learn about things. And then the QBRs were like 2 days long, and I was thinking, okay, there's like some thoughts in my head, but I will save it for the last days. And then when I was asked to give feedback about how the QBRs went, I thought, okay, I'm going to say it. I didn't understand why like the discussion we have in those QBRs always go directly into why is this metrics not working? Why are we seeing the downtrend on this channel? But nobody talks about like how that tied to the goals. And then I started questioning like, don't we have OKRs? Don't we have like things that we're trying to get to? And then later, of course, like it took a few weeks until I realized that this is not how the company is operating. Because at the end of the day, we all want to grow. That's like the North Star. There's no like compromise on growth. We want to expand as much as we can. So we do have, of course, a yearly plan, but everything that you do throughout the year, it's your decision how you want to get there. And we don't overplan. We don't have like OKRs that are cascading down to teams or to individuals. We all work towards the same goals, and you can decide that on your own. So what I really learned is that you really don't need to spend a lot of time on writing down those numbers for specific things that you want to measure. As long as you know what you're headed towards, everything you do has a learning tie to it. Just to go back to the Wolt Plus subscription example, we don't run Wolt Plus advertising in all of the markets, right? Because for some markets, it's maybe we have not as good selections versus markets where selections are very complete. We want to make sure that when we do advertise that, we're confident that we're generating some returns. But on the other hand, like Wolt Plus is not something that I guess you can also, if you do simple math, right? You pay $4.99, you do 2 deliveries, you're already profitable. So what is it in it for us then? Why do we do that? But if you think outside of the box, it's about like the user retention that you can drive in the longer run. It's also about your merchant relationships, people that can stick with you on your app and make sure that you provide the best experience for users. So it's only positive long term. But if you don't have that learnings or things that are helping you to make the decisions afterwards, then it's really hard to tie that together back to your goal. So what I really appreciate is at Wolt, we just test very fast, we document things, and then we repeat. Even if we fail, that's like something that other markets can take as a learning. So there's no, let's say, over-planning happening at Wolt, and I find that very refreshing.
Nice. Alex, biggest learning on your side?
I think it mostly has to do with this shift towards profitability. So in Europe, we only have, I don't know, 15, 20 years of software tech experience. And then you realize in the US and especially in the US, parts of Japan, also China, they have more like 25, 30, 35 years of software tech experience. And a lot of people in Europe are just not used to this idea that like profitability is more important than the culture. And profitability is more important than other things that were more important 3-4 years ago. It's just kind of a learning journey, honestly, for a lot of Europeans. I started working after 2008, so it's not like I saw a cycle myself, but I just saw a lot of, let's call it hubris in hiring and external discussions where we kind of overestimate ourselves in Europe. It's like, hey, you know what? We haven't really seen as much as they have in other countries. So we can still learn a lot from people that have gone through previous downtrends and how we can all crawl out of it together. And I think the trend is positive. So just be open-minded to like, hey, profitability for a vast majority of organizations is now the primary goal or secondary goal. That was just not the case 5 years ago. And we all need to be open-minded to that and actually try and make it interesting and in some way exciting. That's probably, that kind of stood out in the last year.
All right, thanks. Then maybe looking a little bit more forward, what kind of skills do you suggest then the app growth practitioners should develop or adapt in their kind of strategy towards to being successful in 2024? Maybe Rodolphe, starting with you.
Sure. Just also to come back into the learning, but so, 2 years ago, we were really much like department focus, and 2023 was really where we had like these 3 teams where really marketing was at core. We were really embedded within everything that retention was doing, everything that virality was doing, so we could actually oversee all of the activities all together. Because, at the end of the day, marketing is really like the only entity that really starts as like first impression to app downloads, to in-app activity, to re-engagement, to reactivation. And so marketing is always like at every step of the way. And it's like what was really empowering and the big learning is really like how marketing can also like support every other entity, every other stakeholders. And having this core ability to really like communicate vertically and horizontally with everyone and like really impose like a certain vision like really helped. But I think it's really the fact that we've been able to have like North key metric. So we had like 2 or 3 metrics that was literally the exact same goal for everyone, which really allowed everyone within the company to really speak the exact same language, because there is nothing worse than a marketer trying to communicate with data, trying to commit with engineer and not speaking the same language and really not understanding each other. And by doing this kind of framework and working this way, it was really easy for me as a marketer, but also for the rest of the organization to really work towards the exact same goal. And I think that being at the center of the organization as marketer is actually what would be the key to success for an entire company. And of course, like the big advice, like also otherwise that I would give was actually really just to embrace technology and embrace like every single aspect of technology that can be used. Like I was speaking earlier about like using AI and machine learning for better matching. Also like from a creative perspective, how can actually now having just like 1 videos allow you to create another 10 videos in 10 other languages in just 5 minutes. And like, I think like Alex, you were also mentioning it, but also like the automation of like every single task that you could do, like how powerful it can be. And then I think it's really about working with the technology. I don't think like technology per se is able to like, as of now, really like remove you. Maybe in the future, there is like some position in some job that will be reviewed. But as of now, I truly believe that if you start from now really working aside hand by hand with the technology, that would actually what's going to make like every single growth market much more powerful. Yeah.
All right. Ara, what about your strategy to be successful?
Yeah, top 3 areas I would say that are really important, even this year, not just next year. I mean, data compliance and privacy, you really need to be on top of that. It's changing fast. You know, SCAN, Google Privacy Sandbox, cookie deprecation. You might see webinars and read about it, but it's important to talk to your analytics team about it and understand what are the gaps, how should you adapt, and then go beyond depending on your MMP. So AppsFlyer makes our lives much easier, but talk to your publishers, see how they're preparing for it as well. So I think that's one key area you should really look into if you haven't already. Second is with all the data challenges, I would invest time into probabilistic modeling, predictive analytics. I think that's going to be even bigger in the coming months. So really looking into how you optimize your campaigns when you're faced with these challenges. And then last but not least, you know, you've heard it over and over again, AI, but not just AI, like get your hands dirty with it. Talk to your creative team, test out tools. Don't just rely on like what Google provides as AI tools, but test out other tools out there, paid tools, and build the skill in-house, you know. It's your prompting skills there, or your designer's prompting is gonna make or break what AI delivers for you. So I think it's an area where if you're an early adopter, you'll really see the benefits in efficiency, scale, variety, and it's not just a buzzword, like it's already here. Yeah.
Alex, anything to add from your side to 2024 then?
We were joking about the word AI when we started speaking with the panel. I was like, is it kind of over-discussed? I'll describe the journey that I went through in the last 12 months, and maybe that helps people. So you need to stop using the word AI. It's not going to help anybody, really. You need to look at what's going on currently. So in the last 12 months, some quite powerful models have been released. These models are good at certain things and bad at a lot of things. They're called generative AI. Some of them are called language learning models. There are other types of models, DALL-E, Midjourney, et cetera, et cetera. What's going on, though, if you stop using the word AI, is some things have become computationally reducible. It's a very complicated word to say a computer can now do it. Before, it couldn't do it. Just what's going on is that it's touched the realm of creativity and critical thinking, or replicating, or sort of synthesizing critical thinking, or even simulating it. So the skill that you need to pick up, and it's for everybody in this room, is number one, go and think about what targeting looked like 10 years ago in digital channels, where who remembers like in Facebook campaigns, like, oh, I got to select like 32 different attributes to target the exact right LTV cluster. How much has targeting changed in the last 10 years? Well, targeting has become computationally reducible. So we've been through this before. Like it's happened before to us, to a large portion of several jobs. And what's going on now is in the last 12 months, for not just one portion of your job, but the vast majority of your job, parts of it are becoming more and more computationally reducible. So the best way to progress as a team is sit together, understand together what does computational reducibility mean. And the best part about it is you can even spar with ChatGPT and ask it, please break down my job, please break it into tasks, and per task describe to me what is a little bit computationally reducible and what is almost entirely computationally reducible, to give you some inspiration as to how to think about this. So please, stop using the word AI. It's not going to help us. What will help us is if we all collectively look at this as computational reducibility. And I don't get this myself. The word comes from a guy called Stephen Wolfram. I think he is a sort of neutral person in the field. He has a good description of...
That's a hard word to remember, though.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, how do you describe it? Computational reducibility. Stephen Wolfram. Go and read some of his blog posts, and you'll get a better feeling for what's going on. And we'll try to stop using the word AI in panels.
Excellent. Round of applause for our lovely panelists. I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you for all the insights. And we don't have any time for questions, but if anybody does have any questions, feel free to try and chase them afterwards and ask Alex about computational reducibility.
Need a better word. If you have a better word.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.